Hi, welcome to Third Space Live. I'm Jody Peel, and this is a show that offers conversations, ideas, and stories around building mental wellness. Today is September 23rd, 2020, and this is episode 33. In a few moments, I'm going to be introducing our guest, Megan Woodruff, who's going to be talking to us about self-care. But first, I will remind you that you can learn all about Third Space Life Charity at thirdspacecanada.org. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and at our website, you can sign up for our newsletter. So, I'm going to set the tone before I introduce Megan by saying, how are you doing right now? I want to tell you that the last few days, maybe the last week, I've noticed, and people that in my world, at work and at home and in my community have noticed, that people are starting to really feel the long-term effects of all the stressors that are going on in the world right now. We've been living in a global pandemic since early, this year. We're navigating a very polarized political environment. We're navigating the Black Lives Matter movement, significant, scary environmental crises, financial uncertainty, significant lifestyle and environment, or scheduling changes rather, and limitations on our lives, and most recently in Kelowna, smoky air. The list goes on and on. I hope I didn't forget something important because there's so much right now. That wasn't my intention, but the current state of affairs right now suggests that these stresses aren't going away as well. They're going to be around for a while. So self-care is really important right now. I am the worst offender. I have all the good intentions of taking care of myself because I know that in order for me to take care of others, whether it's my family members, my friends, my community, my coworkers, our businesses, I need to take care of myself so I can do a good job taking care of other people. And I'm really thankful today that we're going to be having Megan join us. Now, Megan is a newer member of the Third Space team, but she's also a coach. So Megan is an associate certified self-care coach who has her own coaching business. You can learn more about her at meganwoodruffcoaching.com. Megan has a passion for mental health as well as the coaching industry. She's built her network from a longstanding career in the food service business and wine business in Canada. She helps her clients accomplish clarity around why self-care is essential not only for their survival, but in order to thrive. And that's something we'll talk about today because there's a big difference. And our regular followers might recognize Megan because she contributed in the month of August this year to Third Space Charity by providing us with, partnering with us on a 1-month Serve Yourself self-care program, I guess it was, which was focused for frontline workers and their self-care. It's still on our website, or on our Instagram, and you can also see all that content on Megan's Instagram as well. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you all to Megan. Megan, welcome. Hello.
Hello. Hello, good morning.
You look lovely.
Oh, so do you.
Thanks for joining us.
Really
I'm so excited about this conversation because, like I said, it seems really timely right now. Like something's in the air. Well, that's kind of a pun. Other than smoke, there's something going on right now about maybe stress exhaustion or whatever it is. People are starting to feel like maybe their old coping mechanisms or what they've been doing to try to survive all these stresses we're experiencing isn't working as well anymore. So we're happy that you're going to come and tell us ways that we can take care of ourselves. So why don't you start, Megan, by giving us your definition of what self-care is?
Definitely. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you for having me on the show. I'm so happy to be here. I'm really passionate about mental health and self-care, and this show is such a vehicle for that. So it's great to be here today. I would say that my own definition of self-care and the type of self-care that I coach is long-term sustainable self-care. And it's a brand of self-care that doesn't necessarily feel good all of the time, but it's tackling the stuff underneath that is causing us to be stressed or overwhelmed or not good enough. And so it's doing a bit of a deep dive and getting to the heart of some of the issues that we're experiencing. And it wouldn't necessarily be what you would expect self-care to be or what people would assume self-care is. So
yeah, that's what I'm excited about talking about first, because
yeah,
for a non-self-care expert, that would be me, I would be in that category. I think our culture is such that some of the things that we call self-care, I know you're going to suggest maybe aren't actually true self-care. So something like, I'm thinking about, the bubble bath, going to get an ice cream, having a glass of wine, buying something online. So, a lot of us would say that that's being kind to yourself, or that's self-care.
and
What do you
it
say
is.
about that?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I would say that those things are great. And when they're done in moderation and they're done for the right reasons,
Mm-hmm.
of course, celebrate your wins, reward yourself for things, and don't deprive yourself of those feel-good things. But what I will say is that a face mask is not going to solve the deeper stuff that's going on or fix anything, the behaviors long term. And so I think that while all of those things are feel good in the moment things, when they are being used as a crutch to numb or ignore or distract you from what's really going on, they don't become healthy feel good things anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's the rub I was trying to get at from our pre-show preparation, is that what you're going to be talking to us about is more about changing things that are going to lead to a healthier, more balanced, sustainable life,
Mm-hmm.
not something that's going to wear off in a half an hour
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
and leave you no further ahead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
so should we start with, I think you're going to go through about 6 points or so. Should we start with the first about routine?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got 5 prepared for you guys
Okay,
today.
great.
And these are things that you can start to do right away, start feeling good right away. And then I've got some tips and tools in here too. So the first one I want to speak to is routine, because when there are so many things that are outside of your control right now, and we feel overwhelmed or we feel scared or stressed out, if you put something in your day that you have control over, that creates a feeling of safety, because control for a lot of us equals making us feel safe. So if there's something that you can commit to in your day, every day, that you have control over, that's going to reduce some of those vibrating fight, flight, freeze, hypothalamus responses that are constantly being thrown out by our brains when we are afraid or stressed.
And
So,
it's about, I know that I've learned a little bit about this parenting with one of my children, at least, that predictability is another good word to be using there, that you kind of know what to expect from your day a little bit.
yeah.
And the irony around that too is that a lot of us feel like we don't like routine or commitments or structure. I'm one of those people a lot of the time, but then when you have it, it actually feels good. So maybe this is like all the other points you're going to talk about, and you alluded to it at the beginning of the conversation, that a lot of this stuff isn't easy or doesn't feel good at first, but by building the routine, you end up it ends up helping a lot more than you think it will.
And my tip around routine is that it's easier for us to gain momentum if we start really, really small and really basic and simple. So setting up a routine that it's so easy to succeed at. And one thing I often suggest is this combo. This 3-step combo. A tall glass of water when you get up, a hug from a loved one, or if there's no one around and you're quarantining, from yourself. So easy to do, doesn't cost any money. And then the third one, stepping outside and just breathing the air and taking a nice deep breath. So those are 3 things that don't cost any money. They can be done in under a minute, and they help you to start feeling good right away. And so another piece that I would add to that when you're trying to incorporate routine is be flexible with yourself. I think that some of us, we start out with, I'm going to the gym 7 days a week and I'm taking all the sugar out of my diet, or, you know, all of these really extreme things. And sometimes what tends to happen with that is we get into that all or nothing zone and we fall off, and then it's really hard to get back on. So if you are flexible with your routine and your goals and you adapt them to your current circumstance, you're way more likely to succeed. So instead of the 7 days a week, vegan, no sugar, I'm changing my entire life, maybe you do that for a while and then the momentum or the excitement fades around that. Adapt your goals, readjust, be kind to yourself, and maybe you simplify it and add a little more freedom there, where instead of it's going to the gym 7 days a week, it's I'm just going to listen to what my body needs and I'm going to move in a way that feels good for me 7 days a week. And that way you're still doing something every day, but you're listening to what you actually need as opposed to what you think you need, and paying attention in the moment more. So
you're speaking to habit building as well. And there's a lot of great stuff out there, Atomic Habits, or there's tons of books on that. But
tons of habit stuff, and I've done a lot of research on habits, and I do work within best practices for habits, and they are things that happen 7 days a week. So if you want your habits to start shaping you and molding you into who you want to be, you have to start small. They have to be easily achievable, and you have to be flexible with them.
I think the other piece I can relate to in that, and I appreciate all that you just said, because it's hard to create a new habit and it doesn't feel good necessarily while you're building the habit.
It takes a lot more.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it takes a lot more willpower in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And our willpower isn't a finite resource, right? Our willpower is like a battery that charges and it decreases. So we can't just pull out a ton of willpower all of the time. And so that's why when the habits, they start to become more ingrained and you start out where they don't require a ton of willpower, you end up not needing as much willpower to do them because they just become kind of like naturally ingrained into your routine over time.
I was going to say a good example for any other people who have experienced this, like getting in shape, use that example of the gym. Whether you're going to the gym or you're jogging or whatever you're doing, it's hard the first 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, whatever, but you hit a tipping point or a shift where it becomes so part of your day that you actually can't live without it. You crave it, you are excited by it. So you just have to have that patience and you have to have the faith. So someone who's never developed a new habit, whether you're dieting or whatever you're doing, it is hard at the beginning, but you have to believe and be patient, because you will hit that point where it becomes your new normal, right?
And there's this whole concept about actions before feelings that I love to use when it comes to that, because if we allow our feelings to dictate the pace at which we accomplish our goals, it's going to be a lot less consistent than if we use our logic and knowing that the feelings 100% are going to follow if we act.
I love that. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, actions before feelings. So kind of reminding yourself, if I do go to the gym or I do move my body in whatever way feels good today, I 100% know that endorphins are coming. They're just not there right now.
Right. And it does feel good. Some people like to have a visual reminder of what they've achieved. But when you do something that is good for you and you know that long term it's going to benefit you for like 5 days in a row, it feels awesome.
Yeah.
Even if the actual act of moving your body still doesn't feel good anymore, you feel proud of yourself, and that there's a bit of a snowball effect to the self-esteem piece too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to schedule.
Okay.
I love that you're suggesting like baby steps. Don't set yourself up for failure by going like from 0 to 100. Have a reasonable goal.
Mm-hmm.
So what's our next point after schedule?
So after routine, another fundamental that we need to pay attention to are our bodies. So a lot of us are very disconnected from our bodies and what our bodies are trying to tell us. And our bodies know all. It's where we store all of our traumas, our experiences. Our bodies can be so connected to how we take care of ourselves if we treat our bodies with love and respect. And when things get really overwhelming in life and we have a lot of projects going on and we're really busy and we don't pay attention to what our bodies are trying to tell us, there can become this disconnect. And so what I always encourage people to do is look at your fundamentals of health. And what I like to work with are 4. So the first one is nutrition. The second one is hydration. The third one is sleep. And the fourth one is movement. So if you look at where you're currently at with your life and your relationship with sleep and your relationship with food, and do you drink water and hydrate yourself? Do you move in a way that makes you feel good? And you kind of really dial it back to building that solid foundation and work on that first. Then you have this solid springboard that you can jump off of and reach even higher levels of performance and potential for yourself. And the easiest example I use of this is going to work. So you go to work, you don't sleep great, you aren't hydrated, you don't pack a lunch for yourself. And like, how do you show up that day versus if you had a great sleep, you drank a bunch of water, and you packed a healthy lunch. Maybe you got up early and just moved your body for a little bit, went for a little walk or went to a spin or whatever. How do you show up for the people in your life and your job and your community when you have a solid foundation to operate from? So that's your body and your fundamentals, and you can really simplify here and look at those first. If everything's spinning out of control, you're overwhelmed, you don't feel like you're succeeding in anything, let everything else go. Dial it back to those 4 things, even just for a month, and then hit the restart button on your goals and see how your momentum feels after that.
Yeah, I love that. I think that there's a tendency for most of us to live in our heads and to ignore our bodies. And particularly when you need it the most and life is the craziest and most stressful and maybe most unhealthy, you come home from a busy day or you end a busy day at home with your kids or whatever's going on in your life, and you end up, again, back to how we set the stage for this conversation. The self-care is, I'm going to have a couple glasses of wine and order takeout, feeling like you're rewarding yourself, but really that's setting you up for not the best day tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes the things that we think are rewards aren't actually rewards, or aren't actually, yes, they'll give us that dopamine hit, in the moment that we were talking about, but it's not that long-term sustainable. self-care that I'm talking about.
Yeah. Great. So we've got self-care. So far we have 2 points. We have routine, and then we have taking care of your body.
Yeah.
And the body piece is eat, sleep, hydrate, and movement.
You got it.
Move on to number 3.
Okay. So number 3 is about strengthening relationships. So a great way to take care of yourself is to foster positive, loving, trusting, respectful relationships with others, and most importantly, yourself. And what I will say is, if you improve your relationship with yourself, which is a universal thing, right? We all have one. If you improve this relationship, all of your other relationships in your life will be positively impacted. So if you learn to love and respect yourself, you're going to demand that from other people, and you're going to be able to understand how to give that to other people as well.
So that's a tough one for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a
something
big,
we're taught how to do. Yeah. So
yeah,
what are some tips on how to, sorry, there's a lag in our show. Don't mean to interrupt you. Maybe some tips would be helpful of, like, where do you start to build a healthy relationship with yourself?
So the first starting point, what I would say, is getting bored. And that sounds weird, but it's allowing yourself the space and time to pay attention. One crutch that I see with so many people, a lot of like my girlfriends, or really say like entrepreneur people or leaders, or a lot of young adults, is we're so busy. And what we don't realize is that can actually be a form of avoidance. We pack our schedules from the second we get up to the second we go to bed. And there's not one moment in that day where we check in and take a deep breath and say, how are you today? Or say, just sending some love to myself right now. Or sending some compassion or kindness to myself right now. So getting bored or allowing yourself the space to pay attention is the very first step. And a lot of times, and this goes 100% my own experience, is when you start to do that, you don't enjoy what comes up. There's sometimes some hard stuff that comes up. There's a lot of resistance or anxiety, fear, stress, when we take a minute to actually pay attention to what our bodies are holding, and the thoughts that our minds are holding. Sometimes you're not going to like what you experience when you stop and pay attention to yourself. But just know that you are capable of handling all human emotion. You're hardwired and built to be capable to handle any emotion that your body's going to throw at you. So you can do it. And baby steps, start small and just start paying attention to yourself. That builds respect on a subconscious level. So I would say that would be the first step, is just paying attention. And when things come up that you don't like, acknowledging that those are valid, those are just as valid as the positive stuff.
There's so many threads weaving through our points here, right? And in terms of getting quiet with yourself in order to get to know yourself better, and so that you can actually start evolving and growing. You're right, it's uncomfortable. That ties back into the whole, some of the traditional self-care stuff we do to ourselves. We end up distracting ourselves or numbing ourselves from exactly that. So there's a good example of that those actually hinder leading a healthier, happier life. And from some of our other shows, in terms of that quiet piece, we've introduce our viewers to some other tools when you are trying to explore your inner life and your feelings that you can use to help you process those feelings instead of not processing them. You can journal. These are all easy, free things. You can journal, you can go out in nature, you can meditate, you can do art, you can spend time with your pet, right? There's all these things you can do without distracting yourself that set you up for success in terms of processing your feelings.
Yeah, so I guess the main point there, and I love that you brought that up, Jody, is trying to like clarify, is that all feelings are valid and emotions are valid. And it's important that we allow ourselves the space to feel them and process them. And that comes hand in hand with exploring your relationship with yourself.
I love that. And I also like that you added a really important point. And this is something I learned very late in life, that even though some feelings don't feel good, and learning about the stuff that's not great inside of you, that you'll survive it, and that you don't have to go out and do anything. It'll just naturally go away. As you unpack yourself and your inner self and your feelings, it'll move through you. You don't have to do anything for it to move through you. If you just sit with it and are patient with it and feel it, as uncomfortable as it might be, it will pass. And I love that you reminded us of that. That's important because it can be really scary for a lot of people.
So scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's still scary for me. And I've been practicing feeling emotions probably about 5 years. Since I turned 30, I realized that I was completely numbing all my emotions with being busy and drinking and eating, and that journey of learning to feel things is really hard. Mm. But what I will say is that the practice and time that you put in pays off in spades, because it's like a muscle, right? That the more you work it, the stronger it gets.
I've had that experience too, that learning how to listen to my body and pay attention to my feelings, it's now to the point that I can't ignore it anymore, because it's a habit. And it's almost annoying sometimes, because your body, you'll be like, no, I don't like this, or I'm not feeling this, or this isn't working for me. And it gets harder to distract yourself and numb it out because it won't listen anymore. So that's something to look forward to once you get into the practice of it. And that's really, like you said, this topic is having a healthy relationship with yourself. And that's the only way to do it.
That's ultimately self-care, right?
Okay, so self-care, we've got routine, taking care of your body, strengthening relationships, particularly with yourself. Mm-hmm. What's number 5 or 4?
Number 4 is one of my personal favorites, because I believe this is such a huge game changer, is living in the moment. So bringing to life everything around you and being fully present, because that actually increases dopamine in your body. So when you actually take a minute to just look around you, breathe the air, be with the people you're with. I always use my daughter as an example with this, because I will look at, this is my favorite thing to do. It might sound kind of weird to people, but my favorite thing to do is to just look at her. And I look at like every single blonde eyelash. I look at every little, piece of her skin. I look at her eyes. I look at everything. And I take it all in. And it is the most intoxifying feeling of joy. And what is at stake if we don't pay attention? And that's a big question that I think a lot of us need to find our answer to. Because what is at stake for me if I don't pay attention to my daughter? Well, she's almost 2 years old. She is growing rapidly. She learns a new word every day. If I'm not paying attention to that joy of life, what is at stake? Well, I guess my happiness.
That's really what life is all about, is a series of joyful moments
Yeah.
at the end
Yeah.
of the day.
And learning to be in those moments, again, it doesn't cost you anything. Anybody can do it. It's
So it's practice, though, right? Like what you're speaking to is the whole idea, uh, what a lot of us know to be mindfulness. There's so many ways to practice it. Five senses, paying attention to your five senses is one of the key ways that everybody tends to use, right? Breathing, smelling, tasting, feeling, slowing down and just breathing and taking it all in. It's ancient wisdom that's been around for thousands of years with humans. It's become
yeah,
more.
this isn't a new groundbreaking concept. Absolutely. What I would say, like my own tips that I would coach would be getting really clear on what you want to pay attention to, like what's worth your time.
That's a good one.
Psychologists actually say that your number one asset is your ability to focus your attention for however long you want, when you want. Our ability to focus is such an asset. And having that skill is something that we should be grateful for and that we should utilize more. So getting clear on what do you actually want to pay attention to, what's worth your time, what are you a yes for? Then you get clear on, okay, what am I a no for? And then number two, having boundaries that protect your energy. So things like that are the numbing things or the busy things or the distracting things, having boundaries for those and just being really clear, my phone gets turned off at this time. That's a really easy example because it's relevant for everybody. But, and also knowing that your focus can shift with what your current landscape is or what's going on for you. So, sometimes, your career might be in focus and other times maybe it's your family, and that's okay.
I hear a lot of people talk about feeling like their life is out of control, or feeling like they're so busy they don't even know which way's up. Or I've heard the metaphor, the runaway train. I've heard it particularly in my age group, that you're like, wow, where did the last 10 years go? Where did the last 20 years go? Oh my gosh, my kid's an adult already. The only way to counteract those feelings, and feeling like you're missing out on your life, or that life is like out of control, is to slow it down by being mindful and present, right? That's the way to do it.
Yeah, simplifying, having really healthy boundaries, saying no to things that you don't really want to do. It's okay if not everyone has to like you, and you don't have to be everything for everybody and please everybody. Your job is to protect yourself and your energy so that you can be strong and resilient for everybody else in your life that you care about.
Great. Okay. So, sorry, did I interrupt your last point there?
Nope. Okay. We're good.
So self-care, we've got routine, taking care of your body, strengthening relationships, particularly the relationship you have with yourself, living in the moment. And number five is
one that I've thrown in recently because of the pandemic, and it's your space. And it is an important question that I think we should all ask ourselves. Does our space reflect how we want to feel on the inside? And correlating that. So if I want to feel clear and present and open, and cared for and loving, if I look around me, how would I describe my space? Would it parallel that? Or is it dark? Is it cluttered? Is it heavy? Is it sad? It's such an easy fix to kind of declutter, donate some things, open up the windows, do some dishes, put a little effort into maybe putting some green plants in your space because they improve your brain and brain function and nervous system function. And it can be really fun updating your space or making changes to your space, because we spend a lot of time in our homes or our bubbles or our spaces, our offices right now, right? So that would be the last one that it recently just added into the list. That does my space reflect how I want to feel on the inside?
I like that one because so many of us we're spending all of our time either at home or going to work and coming home. And I think when we're all stressed out more than usual, sometimes we don't pay attention to our space and we let it get messy or dirty, and that just adds to the funk.
It totally adds to the funk. Yes. Yeah.
So that's great. And you're not suggesting that any of this stuff has to be expensive or that you have to buy anything. It's more even choosing what space you're spending time in, and then doing what you need to do to make your space feel good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
So yeah, in a nutshell, I would say those are the fundamentals of self-care that I've been encouraging others, and I've been using for myself. And I feel that if we work on these things, this builds the strength and resilience we need to go out there and show up for our people and for our communities, for our jobs, for our families. And it all starts with just taking or making ourselves a priority and knowing that it's that cheesy saying, like, self-care is not selfish. It's not even, it is about you, but it's also about so much more than just you.
Yeah, I hear that. And, instead of going home exhausted and plopping yourself in front of the TV or the computer and opening a pack of chips, in order to start working on self-care, you're going to have initially some discipline and put some structure in place, like you suggested, but it'll be worth it. And if you stick with it, you're going to feel a lot better. And then you're going to be able to be more effective in your life and in serving other people. That's great.
You got it.
So I know you have a ton more that you could talk to us about, and you have so many tips and resources and tools. I think what we'll do is remind everybody that by following you on Instagram or learning more about you and what you do at meganwoodruff.com, or is it meganwoodruffcoaching.com? Megan Woodruff.
It's meganwoodruff.com, and then the Instagram is at Megan Woodruff Coaching. And I will say the Instagram is where all of the tips and tools and content usually goes. So
great. So follow Megan on Instagram. So if this is something you want to invest in yourself and your self-care, start following her, and she'll give you tons of tips and tools. And you can also reach out to her if you have a question or you're looking for more guidance. Thank you, Megan, for coming today. Really appreciate it.
One thing before I leave, is there anything new that you might take on in terms of your own self-care after our conversation?
Okay, so we're coworkers now. Maybe the viewers know that. We actually share an office, and I've been being ribbed since you got here that I don't pack a lunch, don't eat lunch. You actually gifted me a little cucumber with a bow on it for lunch one day. That was super cute. So I'm trying to pack a lunch or a snack that's healthy. But you know what? I haven't shared this with you yet. Last night I decided that I'm going to break a unhelpful habit. And for me, the way I work, and I know that about myself, that I need to actually create some boundaries, strong boundaries initially to create a new habit. So I'm going to do a 1-month personal challenge, I've decided, and I'm not going to turn on my computer or the TV for 1 month. at home. So instead of Netflixing or working or whatever in the evenings, I'm going to pay more attention to my teenagers and my husband and maybe my home and maybe myself. So that's my challenge. If anybody wants to do it with me, I invite you to do it with me. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be rotten at first, but I know it'll feel good. And I know that I'm going to end up, I already know a month from now, I'm going to look back and go, wow, I had a few things, great things, realizations or happenings in my life by doing this. So that's
and when are you starting?
Yeah.
When are you starting?
Right now. There you go.
Date today. Just if people want to join you, let's say
okay.
23rd.
23rd of September.
If you want to join Jody in a 1 month no screens at home when you get home, is that what it is?
Yep. Because I'm the worst offender. I've gotten into this terrible routine of working too much, coming home too late, being tired, having teenagers that are kind of doing their own thing anyway. And I watch a lot of Netflix or YouTubes, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but this is what the show's all about. I usually am on my phone and watching something on my laptop at the same time, which is so bad for my brain. That's a whole nother conversation, but it's become a habit and I want to break it. So if you want to join me, please do. And where should we connect with our viewers on this challenge?
Yeah, comment on the video if you want to join Jody.
Okay.
Yeah, great, awesome. I'm excited for you. And thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for making me do that publicly, Megan. That was awesome. Now I have to live with you every day at work. Did you do it last night?
Yeah.
Where's your lunch? Okay, thanks to our viewers, as always, for joining us. Stay tuned for more great shows every week on Thursdays. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or learn more at thirdspacecanada.org. Thanks again, Megan. Bye for now. See everybody soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.